Well, all right, what the hell? Some of you seem to react positively the last time I went full shirt and tie, so I'm going to do it again. Maybe this will become a new look for the Schleg Daddy. I mean, it is how I dress in the real world the majority of the time, so it would only make sense. So let me know if you're digging the look or not. It's whatever. All right, anyways, time for the weekly Q&A. This is a two-parter as it always is, and part one's going to be all about the NFL and foosball. Part two about sports and other topics, and that should be fun too. Let's go ahead and get started with part one here, though. Big Sean 7772 asked, where do the Bears and Browns need to improve to win at least 6 games? I think for both teams, it's on the offensive side of the football. Both teams, it's the passing game. It's really that simple. If they can move the ball at least somewhat effectively through the air, both teams can win at least 6 games this year. And I feel like there's a chance that both could. And I know saying that about the Browns seems like a very bold thing to say, but go ballsy, go big, go bold, or go the hell home. The Menace Man asks, does Kevin Tolliver, based off of his first couple of training camp practices, have any chance of cracking the Bears starting lineup this year? I don't know quite about cracking the starting lineup. Let's worry about getting him on the 53-man roster first, and then maybe getting him some tick on Sundays. I think there's a chance. This is a talented kid. He just had some off-the-field concerns, but talking about an undrafted free agent, those are the type of guys you gamble on, and I would not be surprised to see him ultimately make the opening week roster. Paulie Paul, besides Walter Payton, have there been any other athletes' deaths that have ever really gotten to you? Yes. The first two that I could think of is Hank Gathers, if you remember him or maybe not, from Loyola Marymount in 1990. He ultimately collapsed and died on the court in a conference tournament game. And then that inspirational run that team had with Bo Kimball and head coach Paul Westhead as they ran into the Elite Eight before they ran into the buzzsaw. That was Tark's UNLV running Rebs with Larry Johnson and Augman and Anthony. That was a hell of a team back then, man. I miss those days of college basketball. But Hank Gathers was one. Reggie Lewis was most certainly another one. Similar type of situation. Granted not in an NBA game, but still, ultimately died so young, so sad and so tragic. And I think another one was Dale Earnhardt Sr. I think that was another one too, because the only reason I ever gave any craps about NASCAR whatsoever, or ever paid attention to it at all, was the Intimidator. There was just something cool about that man. There was just something awesome about that man. There was no fucks given by him. He would do whatever it took to win, and sometimes it cost him. And sometimes he reaped the rewards. And I remember when he won the Daytona 500 finally in 98 and how awesome of a moment that was. And then 3 years later, as he's sitting there and he's trying to block for his team member, Michael Waltrip, but then, of course, his son, Dale Jr., and that's ultimately how it goes out. I mean, yeah, that one still gets to me to this day. So those could be a couple that I would think of right now. And then he asked, better linebacking core, Blitzburg of the mid-90s or the Dome Patrol? Ooh-wee. I might lean with the Blitzburg team of the mid-90s because they took that Steelers team to a Super Bowl with Neil O'Donnell as a starting quarterback. Ruben Moss, what are the spectrum of outcomes for this season for the Bears? I think anywhere between 5 wins to 11 wins and all other points in between. This team could win 10, 11 games, and Trubisky's not that good, but the defense is outstanding and the running game is great, and they do enough to get in the playoffs and maybe make just a tad bit of noise. They could win potentially 6 games, and Trubisky shows us something, and at the same point in time, they just aren't quite ready, not quite good enough to win the number of games that you feel like maybe they should be, and anything in between. A wide variety of spectrum of outcomes here for the Bears. I really think so. Derek Bruno, can the Dolphins be a wild card contender this year? I don't see it. Just being realistic, I just don't see it. But you never know. And are the Bears getting too much offseason hype? Perhaps maybe a little, because that would be an awfully big turnaround for people talking about them being worth what they have been the past couple of years to go into the playoffs. But then you look at the Eagles last year, And they went from the year before, what were they, 6-10, 7-9, something like that, and they end up winning the Super Bowl next year. So how much hype is too much hype? It's not like people are talking about them for the Super Bowl. I mean, people are talking about them maybe being potentially a playoff threat. If anything, I would think the 49ers are being a little bit more overhyped than the Bears are. That's just me. Slim Gator, what would be the best way for Steve Sarkisian to utilize the offensive talent that he has? It's pretty simple. You look at Julio Jones. You say this mother humper is 6'4", 6'5", 225 pounds, and nobody can really defend him one-on-one. So if my game plan does not call for 12 to 14 targets to him every single week, then I have went full retard, and you never go full retard. Game plan, schmame plan sometimes. It's like when I look back at that Super Bowl, and people want to talk about the team not running the ball and this and that and everything else. The Patriots couldn't defend Julio Jones, and he got targeted 4 times in the Super Bowl. Your biggest game of the year, and you don't go to the best player you have on your team. Like, you should have been force-feeding Julio. You should have been forcing the Patriots to have to adjust because he was destroying them. And he was destroying them, and he didn't give them enough opportunities. It starts with getting Julio the damn ball. And you work everything else off of that. Really. Get Julio the ball. Every game, minimum of 10 targets. It truly is not that hard. And if Matty Ice doesn't go to Julio enough, then you pull him on the sidelines and you light into his ass and tell him, Julio, big dude, throw him the damn ball. Brian Ingemels, if you were NFL commissioner for a day, what rule or policy changes would you make? I guess the number one thing I would have to do is figure out how to deal with the anthem crap once and for all. This is one of those things, like, it was an issue last year, but then it started to die off, and then they reacted to Trump in the offseason, and Trump is going to continue to talk about it because it's a winner for him politically. Why wouldn't he? Of course he's going to talk about it. He's going to continue to talk about it. And from his standpoint, as he should. I'm going to figure out a policy, roll with it, and no matter what, people are going to be pissed off anyway, so what the hell difference does it make? In terms of any other rules or policy changes, I don't know. But that would be the first thing I guess I would have to deal with. Zach Powers, what do the Lions have to do to win the NFC North? Number one priority, number one goal of the program, they must be able to run the football. I'm going to repeat that, and you know this too. They have to run the football. No more one-dimensional stat Padford crap. Run the football. And if they can run the football, there's enough talent there to win the NFC North. And if they don't, they'll finish last place. Drake Maddox, 28. Who would you feel better about as your quarterback combination heading into the season? Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield, or A.J. McCarron and Josh Allen? I personally would probably have to feel better about Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield than I would McCarron and Allen at this point. Josh Grantham, what sort of a new deal does Taylor Lewan deserve? Taylor Lewan deserves to be paid like a borderline elite NFL left tackle because that's what he is. He deserves top 3 or top 5 pay at the position. It's one of those things, you don't overthink it. You just kind of figure out what the range is, what the market is, and then you pay the damn man. Period. Courtney Centimore. What do you think so far of Anthony Miller's start to training camp? The dude is a route running machine. Easy for me to say. And yes, he is. He's a stud. Stud. Now I'll be stunned if he's not the Bears' second leading wide receiver in 2018. I'll be stunned if he's not starting some point in time early in the season. I'll be stunned if he's not. Stunned. I am not surprised that Anthony Miller, with the chip that he has on his shoulder and his work ethic, is doing anything other than impressing folks in camp. Chad Nash. Can Jordan Howard improve his hands to be good enough to be a 3-down back in Matt Nagy's scheme? I think so. Like, it's kind of funny to me with Jordan Howard. I didn't think he was that bad of a pass catcher as a rookie at times. And then last year he was brick hands Howard. Yeah, he could improve his hands and become a 3-down back in that system. I don't see why not. I mean, not everybody is naturally gifted at a certain skill, but it doesn't mean they can't improve, get better at it, and be at least somewhat reliable with it. Real Oba. Any interest in doing an NFL fantasy football league with your followers? Maybe on the one hand, but I'm not really that much into season-long fantasy football anymore. I'm more about the DFS, the daily fantasy sites. Problem with that is that I'd feel really bad if only like a few of the people that watch these videos were able to get into one. Then I'd be starting another one. Then I'd be starting another one. And then, oh my God, who knows how many leagues I would be a part of. And I wouldn't want to be that guy that's talking about his freaking 10th fantasy team, because who gives a shit? You most certainly would not. So I'd probably be more likely to join random people's leagues that watch me than start a league and have to pick and choose between people, because I'd feel really bad leaving people out, honestly. Yakum Flavor. Are the 49ers overhyped? As I referenced a little bit earlier, I think they are just a tad, but it might not matter this year. They might be in a position to make the playoffs or contend for the wild card. They might be in a position, if things go a little south for the Rams, to win that division. I just think, Garoppolo got a massive deal and basically was off of 5 starts there in San Francisco. And he was good, but not great. I mean, that's the reality. The numbers suggest that. So I think people talking about this team that's been really bad for a couple of years now, all of a sudden turning it around to the level that some people are, I think is a bit much, but it might not be that too much, if that makes sense. Horsepower 97. Is the argument that elite wide receivers and running backs don't win Super Bowls valid? I mean, you go way back in the day, Jerry Rice, I think, won, 3 Super Bowls? He was pretty elite, wasn't he? Michael Irvin was elite in his time. He's got 3 Super Bowls. But like in the modern league, I kind of get what you're saying, because the numbers don't indicate that you win a bunch of championships with elite wide receivers and elite running backs. You win with elite quarterbacks or franchise-level quarterbacks and studs at other areas of the team. But you could say Marshawn Lynch was an elite running back, and in his peak, he most certainly was in the National Football League, and he won a Super Bowl, took his team to another one that they should have won. But yeah, I can understand why some teams are a little hesitant to invest elite money in elite players at the wide receiver and running back positions, because they feel like they could better spend that money elsewhere and be successful and potentially win championships. And they're maybe not that off base. But some of it could just be coincidence too. Georgian Fulia. Who will be the first NFL head coach fired this year? First NFL head coach fired. That is an excellent, excellent question. I'll go Dirk Cutter in Tampa Bay. Dirk Cutter, Tampa Bay. Michael Strickland. What would be better in your eyes? The Bears beating Green Bay twice but not making the playoffs, or the Bears losing to the Packers twice but making the playoffs? This is easy. I don't give a shit if they lose to the Packers twice a year, every single year. Yeah, it'd be nice to beat them. But if the Bears are making it to the playoffs, they're making it to some Super Bowls and winning some Super Bowls, who gives a shit? I could care less. Kind of comes down to the whole Cubs-White Sox thing. The only time I would ever really, truly care or be bothered about the White Sox in any way is if they were facing the Cubs in the World Series. Otherwise, they do their own thing. I really don't care. So, like when they have the Crosstown Classic, it's nice to beat them, but in the end of the day, who gives a shit? The White Sox right now are terrible, and the Cubs are a borderline contender. The White Sox can win those meaningless games. I'd rather worry about the Cubs winning games in October when it actually really, really, truly does matter. So for the Bears, I could take losing to Green Bay twice a year if it means playoff trips and Super Bowl appearances. Who gives a shit? Let the cheeseheads up in Brown Bay have their moment of glory in the regular season. I want that glory in the playoffs. So yeah, I'd take the playoffs all day. And I find it crazy that anybody else for their team in that type of situation wouldn't want the playoffs instead of beating the divisional rival twice. I'm just saying. But anyways, that is it for this installment of the weekly Q&A. Hope you guys enjoyed the shirt and tie. Hope you enjoyed this. Part 2 will be coming up soon, so stay tuned.